Well, good morning, CrossRoads. Just before I start, for those of us who were here last Sunday and listened to the folks from the Navajo Mission, for those of you who don't know where our funds go for the car show, that's the testimony. That's the testament. When they said they had from 6 kids to 30 in their youth group now, that's something. And so I just want to let you know that when we hold that car show, not only do the funds that we raise help our kids, they also help the kids within the Midwest or the Plains area, as I like to say. So if there's kids that need to go from a church from Abilene or down in Oklahoma, they can come in and tap on some of our funds and we can send kids to youth camp. But that was just great to hear them say they've got 30 kids now. Because my wife and I have been down there a couple times, and if you have not been down there, if there's another conference or any way to get down there, you need to get down there and check that place out because it's an eye-opener. So, I'll start my testimony here. I told the wife, you better have some tissue ready because it might get a little rough for her. 2 weeks ago, Bishop Ron talked about crisis in our lives and how we deal with it. And my testimony is about the crisis that Betty and myself have experienced in our lives for the past year and how God is helping us get through them. As most of you know by now, my wife suffered a major heart attack in April. And with God's help and the power of prayer, she is fully recovered from that event. What most of you don't know is what the late Paul Harvey used to say is the rest of the story. Starting this last November, we have had at least 6 family members pass in our family. Now, these deaths ranged from old age, cancer, and a couple of them were accidents. We lost 5 very, very close family friends, mostly to some type of disease. 4 friends of ours came down with some type of major health issues and have since recovered or in the process of recovery through treatments. And not to be outdone with health issues, our oldest daughter is going through a divorce right now. Now, some of our close friends were or still are members of CrossRoads, and some of you know them and consider them your friends as well. I'm not trying to say that our troubles are any worse off than some of you out there, because we're all going through some type of crisis. However, this year in our life, it has been pretty stressful at times. So where does God fit in all of this? Where doesn't he? John 16:33 says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble. But take heart, I have overcome the world. It's easy to say, in the world you will have trouble part. We're always doing that. And forget the rest. I know that's how Betty and I feel about this year. It came to a point where we were afraid to pick up the phone, afraid that we would learn of some other tragic event in our lives. I remember one day this past summer that Betty told me she was almost numb to the amount of issues that we were going through this year, and that it is almost a routine to have something happen every month. But God has been with us through all this, through my wife's crisis with her heart attack, which was a miracle in itself, through all the accidents, health issues, and divorce, God is always there. It's just hard at the moment or days after to realize it. If we don't believe what is said in John 16:33, then what other choice do we have? A life of feeling sorry for ourselves, or anger and resentment at something or someone that we cannot change? We don't know God's plan for us, or for those that He has taken, or for those that He has laid a burden on. But we know that He is here, there for us, and always will be. This is easier said than done. We all know that. We can write this stuff on a piece of paper, come up here and say, yeah, it's easier said than, well, it is. But it's a crisis that we have to bear it's a cross that we have to bear in order to live with the life of Christ. And that's what we are trying to do. Got to take a drink here for a second. I'll finish this. In closing, I would like to tell you this story of my sister-in-law, Alice. Every time you read this, you don't cry, but when you get up here, you do. Whom we lost in September. She was admitted to Salina Regional a month after my wife was released with a blood infection, and afterwards suffered a heart attack. She recovered enough to the point that she was sent to a rehab facility in Wichita, where she was showing signs of recovery or of improvement, but then had another setback, one in which would ultimately take her life. During Alice's stay in Wichita, my wife and her two sisters would take trips down there once a week to help with her care and to be a comfort to their brother John, and just to give him a break. It was during one of these trips that John told them this story. One of the nurses came in one day and was working with Alice when the subject of cats came up. Now, at this point in Alice's care, she was mostly in and out of staying awake, and we weren't too sure if she recognized anyone anymore. However, the conversation continued between John and the nurses about how they both had house cats and the antics that cats get into. Now, bear in mind, too, that Alice knew she had cats, and she loved both of them. So when the conversation ended, Alice whispered in a very faint voice, well, what happened to the kitties? Because the story had ended, and she wanted to know what happened to the kitties. Well, these words seemed to tell John that his wife's quality of life was not going to improve anymore. A few weeks later, with family by her side, Alice passed away. Now, on the day that Alice left us, my wife was there with her, along with other family and friends. I was at home, and we too had a house cat who, at 17 years old, was beginning to see her last days. So when Betty got home that evening, I had to tell her about our mama, as we called her. Well, Betty wanted her in her lap. So I went and got her, placed her in my wife's lap, and at 10 o'clock that night, Mama passed away. To us, it was just Another stressful and painful day in our year. You know what? Well, okay, now the cat's died. What else is going to happen? However, somehow I would like to think that Alice knows what happened to the kitty. She's sitting on her lap in heaven. Thank you.